Hi. In this video I'm going to read to you the financial horror story entitled The Brokers from Buconero. It is inspired by The Boys from Brazil by Ira Levin and the Parmalat financial scandal. It's covered on page 145 of Swiss Francenstein Financial Horror Stories. The Brokers from Buconero. Climate change will kill us, Tim Di Bucco, the CEO and grandson of the founder of the world's largest home insurance company, Bucco Insurance Group, between brackets, BIG, said as he looked at his executive committee gathered in the boardroom. Their eyes moved from the slide on the big screen with some big numbers to his grim face. These claim and damage numbers are terrible. The forecasts are worse, disastrous in fact. We are going to see more hurricanes, more glaciers melting, more rivers flooding, and more damage to homes. Much more than we can afford. He turned to the general counsel sitting on his right. Our lawyers have found ways to reduce our insured risk substantially, but we are still far too exposed to all kinds of indirect damages resulting from floods, heat waves, and more. It will be impossible to increase the premiums by enough to balance the claims we foresee, and reinsurance is pretty much exhausted. Susan didn't need much time to convince me that if our liabilities are going through the roof like this, we need our assets to go through the roof as well. I like the succinct summary, Tim, said Susan, head of asset and liability management. Not one for the General Assembly meeting, though. Tim paused and leaned with his hands on the boardroom table, seemingly studying the kind of wood, mildly polishing it with his right hand for a moment. He kept looking at the table as he continued. Ladies and gentlemen, my proposal, he looked up at each of his ExCo members one by one. My requirement, I should say, is that all of you are going to find ways to raise an absurd amount of extra capital to absorb the claims we know are coming. And I'm not talking about some bond issue to raise a few billion. I'm talking at least 50 billion. It's an unprecedented amount, but we have no choice. If you all want to keep this company and your jobs alive, you will have to find ways to do this, and quickly. I'll give you 2 weeks to come up with ideas. Angeline had been Chief Investment Officer of BIG for just a year. She had been thinking hard about any possible ways to raise such an insanely large amount. A mammoth bond or equity capital issue? Bank lending? No, not enough, not good enough. Undoubtedly, less conventional methods had to be used. But which? Criminal stuff? Theft? Ponzi schemes? She was reading The Economist whilst having her Saturday morning breakfast. Her eye was caught by an article in the Technology Quarterly section. A biotech company had launched the first clone-sultancy. Her eyes scanned through the article. The company claimed to deliver consultants that could replicate people with specific skills and experiences. The first thought that instinctively crossed her mind was Bernie Madoff. He managed to attract over $50 billion from investors around the world for his Ponzi scheme. What if we hired a number of clone sultans that replicate his skills to pull in such an amount from investors? She pushed away the thought of Ponzi schemes, but could not let go of the clone sultans idea. Let me introduce you to our clone sultans, said the 30-something-year-old spec-wearing nerd. Angeline followed him into a big room of their Silicon Valley offices. She gradually froze as her eyes saw around 60 men standing up from their desks as she entered, exactly at the same time, in the same way. They all wore the same dark blue suit with a white shirt and Bordeaux red tie. Their hair was nearly black. These guys are identical. The nerd smiled. I know what you're thinking. I know it is strange when you first see them, but you'll get used to it. The best things about these clone sultans is that you can program them to be anyone and do anything. If you just give us a name of a person you want them to replicate, we will find some of their DNA, some hair for example, and use it to program our consultants to replicate this person. We can even use voice recordings to extract the DNA profile. That will be a much more expensive option though. I see. Can you replicate Bernard Madoff? She said it before she realized it. Yes, he said instantly. We can replicate anyone. In fact, famous people are easier. All these guys will be clones of him, although they will keep looking the way they look right now. He turned to the clone sultans. Guys, can you tell me if you can replicate Bernie Madoff? Yes, Vlad, we certainly can, they said in chorus. This is what we could sound like, but we can also just assume Bernie's traits and skills without his voice, they continued in another voice. Angeline's mouth fell slightly open as she watched the small army of clone sultans change their voice and say the exact same thing at the same time and in the same voice. That was Madoff's voice, right? Yes, said the nerd. The voice is the easiest part to replicate. His traits, talents and experience is much more complex and less visible. You probably don't want him to sound or look like Madoff anyway, right? He chuckled. Angeline smiled. Got it. How would I know that we actually get Madoff if they don't look or sound like him? If you want, I can program Tess here to be you for a week. We do demos to show this works. He clapped his hands. Tess, can you come please? A blonde woman came in, wearing a business skirt and jacket, medium-high heels and a pearl necklace. Nah, Angeline said and chuckled. I can't expose my husband to a prettier version of myself for a week. He might keep her or switch off my bad traits. 2 weeks later. I would like to present an unconventional campaign that should have the potential to generate the funds we need, said Angeline. Perhaps controversial in some ways, but we believe effective. I'm listening, said Tim. We are going to launch a series of ESG funds that are going to build an irresistible track record. The irresistible part will come from consistently high returns that will be generated by inflows of new money. The new money will keep coming in because of the consistent returns. A Ponzi scheme, you mean? Angeline cleared her throat. That would be one way of referring to it. I consider it a return ensuring mechanism. The inflows will be ensured by close to 100 consultants, and here it comes. These consultants are replicas of Bernard Madoff. Replicas of Bernie Madoff? Tim asked. What do you mean? Yes, replicas of Bernard Madoff. We're not proposing your classic consultants with an education, ambition and experience. No, these will be clone sultans. They're human beings cloned by a leading biotech company. Listen to this. This company I found is capable of cloning any person you want, in whatever number you want. We would order about 100 of them and get them to use Bernie's fundraising talent and experience to get investors to invest in our ESG funds. Imagine, the men single-handedly managed to amass over 50 billion. Guess what happens if you have 100 clone sultans around the planet to entice investors to invest in our ESG funds? How will you get 100 consultants to be doing that work around the world within weeks? We will hire these consultants to act as brokers for this global ESG product in our various distribution channels. They will be dedicated salespeople that will sell the funds to existing and new investment management clients. They will not look like Madoff or there are otherwise replicas. She opened up her laptop and placed it in front of Tim. Before I go on, you have to see this video the company took of my visit. I wasn't aware they did that because they wanted to capture the surprise effect it had on me. If you see what I'm telling you, it is much more powerful. She played the video. Wow, that is incredible, said Tim after the video ended. Tell me more. The campaign will be put on the global map by Bob Geldof, the guy behind Band-Aid. Do you recall the song Do They Know It's Christmas he produced? The one that was sung in turn by the most famous pop singers to support famine in Africa? Tim thought for a moment. Yes, I think so. He said he would be ready, willing and able to do that again, and to the same tune, but the lyrics will now be about climate change. The song's title will be Do You Know the Time Has Come? Angeline started singing the part of the song with the title in it. Yes, I remember now, said Tim. So you would launch a global ESG investment campaign promoted by pop stars that should appeal investors and everyone out there to invest in ESG funds to save the planet? That's right. Angeline looked at him, visibly keen to see a response. But how are we going to pay the insurance claims? Fund management business can be profitable, but we can't have the payment of claims as investment purpose. How would that make the investors money? Angeline looked around and lowered her voice. Madoff got away without good explanation about his investments for over 25 years, just by presenting consistently high returns on investment. Investors are blinded by return, Tim. Nobody asks difficult questions if returns are good. Even better if the cause is good as well. We will use the funds to pay out the insurance claims, so we are in fact investing in climate change, in a way at least. We are investing to repair the giant damages caused by it. But the return will mostly come from the new money flowing in. This is where we have to trust the consultants and show consistently high returns on investment. If we do that with help of the consultants, we will keep seeing new investors coming in. And it is an incredible story, right? There is so much to be done in ESG investing. Nobody will be surprised about consistently high returns. Besides, would people blame us if we run a Ponzi scheme if it is for a good cause and only works if it is a Ponzi scheme? To be frank, I didn't sleep well for a few nights pondering we should be doing this, but now I do. In the bigger scheme of things, I believe it is justified. Tim was silent for a bit. This can fly. I like the out-of-the-box nature of it. Bob Geldof, consultants. Haha. He thought some more. We will need a credible management company. We will make my personal holding company, Buconero Limited, a subcontractor of the main fund management company. 3 months later, Madison Square Garden was packed for one of the bigger Super Bowl championships organized. The big logo was everywhere, and so was its ESG launch themed "Do You Know the Time Has Come?" The group of pop stars performed a song by that title during the break, the most expensive advertisement time in US history. Angeline had arranged for them not just to perform for free, but also to jointly pay for this advertisement. A clever marketing campaign made dual use of the song title, emphasizing both the time to save the planet as the time to invest in the ESG funds. The army of Madoff consultants had worked hard to manage investor expectations around the practically certain investment returns. It was unfortunate that the funds could not show any investment track record, but in spite of that, they managed to generate a wave of great publicity. The combination of good calls, top pop singers, and an almost suspicious financial benefit worked out as planned. Under the sounds of voices of the world's most famous singers and video images of what the invested capital would mean to the environment, a record amount of capital was invested. Just during the Super Bowl. It continued record-breaking for a long time. The consultants were particularly effective attracting investors over the years that followed, as Tim was effective to pay insurance claims from the funds invested, and to live a very good life from funds siphoned off by his Buconero company, booked as transaction costs and non-existent reinsurance premiums. No fund would escape from his company. After all, it meant black hole in Italian.